You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, S02.E04, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, we're going to talk about marriage, navigating a long-distance relationship, and the sacrifices you have to make. We're also going to spend some time talking about the power of acknowledgement. We'll spend some time going into the minds of an individual as he thought about proposing and making sure he was prepared to be someone's husband. And finally, we'll talk about the different levels of happiness that one endures during their relationship. And we might, gotta keep listening, spend some time talking about the thought process of going through a divorce. What's going on, everybody? This is Chidozie again, here today with a good friend of mine from college, the infamous Mr. Jomar, as I like to call him, Jomarion. What's good, man?
Hey, how's it going, man? Good to be here. Happy to finally have a chance to do this. And I've definitely listened to a few of the episodes, actually all the episodes. And so I'm just really blessed to be here, sitting here with you.
It's been a minute. You guys were gone for a while, which is why I couldn't have you on season 1.
True.
But I'm glad that you guys are back in the country. We'll talk about that story. But I think you have a very interesting story with your wife that a lot of people could benefit from, learn from, and will enjoy hearing. Yeah. And so, like every episode, want to do a toast, and I got Noble Oak for you. It's a different one. My first time having it, but it's had good reviews, so I hope we enjoy it. But this episode, I want to toast to the challenges that occurs in life and the love and effort it takes to overcome them.
Sounds good.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
It's pretty smooth, man.
Ooh, that's real smooth.
You got a lot of oakiness in it.
Noble oak.
All right, so they was being real about the oak.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So I want to make sure that the listeners have context to your relationship and the person that you're with. So how long have you known your wife?
So we've known each other about 15 years, nearly 15 years.
Because y'all been together since college, undergrad, right?
Yeah, undergrad. So that was pretty much sophomore year, undergrad.
And you some people say you've come a long way. For those that don't know my man, this man is a business owner. He has a great job, clean cut. You know, he gives the Omarian eyes, light skinned eyes, even though he's not light skinned. But in college, you had the locks, the tongue ring. We're talking about development, growth. Come a long way. So how long were you and your wife dating prior to you proposing?
So it was about 7 years before I proposed.
So this is over the course of undergrad finishing. Because you guys didn't meet your freshman year.
Right.
You guys met, the sophomore?
So that was sophomore year we met. And then it took about a year for us to figure things out if we really wanted to be
Good question,
together.
because a lot of people ask me, and I didn't do this in season 1 as much. Several listeners wanted to know, okay, I know how long they've known each other. I know how long it took to propose, but there's also that stage in between where you're getting to know the person, but you guys are not official yet, and what that looked like. So you said, and even though this is college, you said about a year or so before you guys, okay, let's take this relationship seriously.
Well, yeah. It was a bit of an in-between period too. But I guess we can get into that later. It was interesting because we went from me courting her to then she saying no, then I stepped back, and then she came back around and said, well, maybe I do kind of like
realize what she might have missed out on her blessing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So
all right, so and so how long have you guys been married?
So now married since 2013. So that makes
7 years.
7 years.
Going on 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what do you do for a living?
So I work in procurement.
Okay.
So basically contract negotiations for one of the big airline companies.
You also you're also an entrepreneur, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I have a utilities business. So our brokerage services to where I can help people save money on their bills at their home or office.
Hey, if you guys tripping about your electricity bill, your energy bill, your water bill, your heat bill, your iron bill, hit up my man.
I'm the guy.
I'm promoting black business. What's the name of the business?
The business is called Sharper Services.
And you got a website?
Of course.
What is it?
www.sharperservices.com.
All right, there you go. only plug I'm gonna give you for free. All right. So what does your wife do for a living?
So she is a accounting consultant. And I'm sure that she would not want me
to... No, we ain't gonna put everybody's business out there, but she has a really good job.
Yeah.
And we're gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
And so when we think about your upbringing, her upbringing, and your parents' influence on that, what was growing up the marital status of your parents?
So my parents have been married for nearly 40 years.
Okay.
But they both have had previous relationships prior to that.
Like marriages
with kids
or
marriages.
So they were married before.
Yep.
Divorcees or divorcees.
Yep.
And they met each other.
Yep.
And they've been together ever since.
Yes, correct.
But they also have kids outside of in those previous marriages.
Correct.
Got it. And what about your wife?
So her parents have been married for 40 years, nearly 40 years as well.
See, I got, at this point, damn near 80 years of experience to tutelage to draw on if you guys need it.
Yes, of course.
Okay, and then currently, do you guys have any children?
No children.
You guys want children? Oh, yet. Okay,
yet.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And so let's get now that we know who you are, we know a little bit about your wife. Let's get a little bit more context into just what this podcast is about. Okay. And so one of my favorite questions is, what do you love about your wife?
Oh, man. What don't I love? Yeah, right. That would be the textbook answer.
Yeah, we want to keep it real. I'm
going to keep it real. So I think one of the biggest things that I love about her is her passion and her consideration. So almost anything that she considers doing or puts energy towards, it's because she's passionate about it and really has the energy behind it and the will and want behind it. So I really say that passion.
I hear you on that. And so you told me what you love about her. What about her makes her special?
The thing that makes her special, I'd say, would be the fact that she can walk into a room and completely light it up. It was actually one of the first qualities that really interested me about her is that the spark in her bubbly personality, the conversationalist that she is, the social butterfly, and the fact that she can pretty much talk to anybody and everybody and be so adaptable is really, to me, that energy of lighting up the room that makes her special to me. That's
what's up, because I think, and I don't want to generalize here, but I think that's not always the case with women. You know, they tend to be with their crew, and when it's new terrain, they're kind of suspect. So I think it's always awesome when you see people that you can throw them out there and they're good, and you don't have to be with them 100% of the time to make them feel comfortable.
Right.
Moving along, you know the name of the podcast, so I asked this question as well. You know, when did you, like, that moment hit when you were telling yourself, you know what, I think I love this woman. You know, you knew that you loved her and that's the person that you wanted to, like, marry.
Yeah. So that's a interesting question for me because of if you take it back, as we mentioned, you know, we've known each other for nearly 15 years.
I mean, you guys have grown up with each other.
We've developed together. Even down to our humor has kind of become very similar. But I think the moment that for me was after moving so we graduated college she graduated 2009. I graduated 2010. We both went home to our respective hometowns. So she's originally from Dallas. I'm from Houston. And we actually made the decision to move in together. And after somewhere in that year, I don't remember the defining moment, but it was that during that first year moving in together, the decision was just, it must have been just sitting on the couch. We're watching some show. Don't remember the show. I look over at her and I'm like, yeah, this feels right. This feels right.
You're like, I could do this forever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And we were laughing at the same jokes on the TV and stuff. So yeah.
It's real. I've sat on the couch with many people. I haven't had that feeling yet. But, you know, one day I'm hoping to sit on the couch and look at whoever I'm next to and be like, you know what, I could do this forever.
Lord willing.
That's the goal.
Yep.
But this wasn't the direction I wanted to take it. But since you talked about it, let's go a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. And so you guys moved in with each other. You guys are around, I would say, like, under, you know, you're not 25 yet at this point.
Right.
Close to, but not there yet.
Right.
So pretty young, and you guys are moving into it. As someone that has lived with a significant other before, you know, that could present its whole can of worms in terms of getting to know each other, dealing with conflict. I would say just adjusting to other people's space and being in their space. What were some of the challenges that came up within just adapting to that process and learning how to compromise when it comes to people being in your space and living with someone? Yeah. And let's start there. Like, what were some of the challenges that you guys faced early on with that? Just with that part of the relationship.
Well, I might take it back a step because it leads into some of the challenges.
Do what you got to do. Yeah.
So when my wife graduated, she moved back to Dallas, as I mentioned, and I was still in college. So she was going about her career, and it presented some challenges because we were together on campus, seeing each other pretty much every day. And then now we're waiting a week to 2 weeks to see each other, long distance relationship, different lifestyle. And I'm, being active on campus and leadership roles. So my time was stretched also. And our hours just were all different. So we had some challenges there. I graduated, moved to Houston. So our distance from there separated even further from one another. And I started my career and things like that. So during that time, it was that long distance and us readjusting to not being able to see each other, seeing each other's facial expressions, because communication, a great majority of it is that nonverbal. So we had some challenges there, just being able to communicate effectively. But when we made that decision and made the decision for me, was right for me in my career, and it worked out better for her in her career, for me to move to Dallas, to make that sacrifice, to double check that this is something that we wanted to do long term. We decided the best thing to do was to move in together.
Was this before you had the sitting on the couch moment?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a big risk because at this point, you're not sure if I want to do forever with this person yet.
Right.
So you are faced with the decision: do I leave what I have in Houston and move for this person? And so, help me understand what was running through your mind with that process. What were you thinking about?
That was tough because in Houston, there's a large oil and gas business, industry. I was there in that industry, and had the support of my parents. My sister was there, like a great friendship. I went to elementary, middle, high school. So I had a large group of friends there. So the thought process was really, I don't want to look back 20, 30 years from now and say, should I have just made that sacrifice? Like, it is a job. It was good. I enjoyed it. Relatively speaking, of course, but would I be looking back 20, 30 years from now and say, man, I could have just gone up there for a year, seen where we were going with our path and our relationship. And maybe she was the one. Didn't know, because also, just reiterating, we were going through a lot of challenges being apart.
Yeah, I can get it. Anybody that's done a relationship while in school, so whether college, undergrad, or graduate school, it's an accelerated process when you get to see someone every day. You're not on a traditional time clock where I'm working from this period to this period, kind of out of commission, and then we have the evenings to try to make work. Where in school, your schedule's a little bit more free. You can see each other consistently. So you guys go from one extreme. If normal life is the medium, to the other extreme where you guys are doing long distance. Right. And so I can imagine that's an adjustment.
Right.
And so, oftentimes you see it's the woman that is making those sacrifices for their relationship. Okay. My guy's here. He has a good job. I'll adjust, or I'll figure out what I'm going to do so that we could, make it work. And in this situation, you were faced with that decision. And in that, I guess, thought process, was there anything that, were you considering her job versus your job? And I'm trying to put myself or another guy in that situation. Like, what are some of the immediate thoughts that I would think about? Like, okay, whose job is better? And I'm not saying these are the right thoughts, but these are probably the likely thoughts.
Right.
Whose job is better? Whose job is if potentially will work, is going to make us, take us to the next level economically? Was there any kind of thought in your process in terms of like, okay, my career is going this way, her career is going that way? Who does it make more sense to sacrifice? Or was it like, if you don't come, it's not going to work because she ain't moving?
Right. That's a really good question, because you do see typically it's the woman that's making that sacrifice for the man. But I think it was where she was in her career, and her path was that it was best for her 5, 10 years, 20 years from now for her herself to maintain where she was. And for my industry and my career path, I had a little bit more flexibility. So it was more so to say, hey, if we are to make this work, it makes more sense for me to make the sacrifice. And yeah, it might be a little road hump, a bit of challenge to jump back into it. If I had to move back to Houston for whatever reason, it just made more sense for her to stay on her path and stick with the company that she was with and in that type of role and industry.
Yeah, that makes sense because I mean, at that time she had been working. She had been a little bit more established in her career than you were because you were just graduating maybe a year or two removed from it.
Correct.
Where she had been there at least a couple years longer.
Correct.
And so, it sounds like you're saying, hey, when I thought about if we make it, it's more where your career could go, given the flexibility or inflexibility you have versus mine.
Right.
I'll take an L because in general, I have more flexibility on what I can do than to bounce back than if you were to take the L and then how you would try to bounce back.
Right.
And so you made that decision more of thinking about the future in mind, even though you weren't sure yet.
Right. Right. And also had a bit of advice. So my mom, she could see that I was toying with this decision. It was a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and my mother just asked me, how are you guys doing? What's the next step? Are you guys progressing? Where are things going? And I didn't quite at that time have an answer. And she could see it in my eyes, my face, my emotion, I didn't really give her much information, but she just said and suggested, why not move to Dallas and see how it goes? It'll be a lot easier to make that decision when you're in the same place, in the same city. You get to see each other more often and you'll be able to get back to growing together and seeing where you guys want to go. Otherwise, versus spinning your wheels here separate. So it was good advice because it also gave me a feeling of I had a bit of support there for my mom to say, hey, take this leap of faith, pray about it. And whatever the solution, whatever the outcome is, it is what it is, and it'll allow you to move forward with your life. So it was a challenge, but it was good because I had that support.
Gotcha. So you were so post graduation, you guys deal with the transition from being all up in each other's face to then being long distance,
right?
And then it was a conversation or a decision around, do I, we need to make this work. We need to be in the same space.
Right.
Who goes? Like who's moving? Who's taking the L? Mm-hmm. And it's not an L because I've learned over time it's you're winning more if it works out. But the sacrifice was made on your end to move to where she was at for the sake of her career, and making sure that continues to grow in the way that it needs to grow.
It was, I guess, what you would call like a risky investment, but not really that risky. It was an investment.
It's risky. You don't know what's gonna happen.
True. Yeah.
And then y'all live with each other. You don't know,
right?
You don't know what's gonna happen.
It wasn't risky until we moved in, and then we were looking at bills and all kinds of stuff. Apartment lease.
You really seeing how people operate life. And what I like to call the business of a relationship.
Yeah.
And so now, fast forward now, you've made the decision to move to Dallas so y'all could be in the same city.
Yep.
And not only did you decide to move to Dallas, you guys decided to move in with each other. And I get it. Like economically, makes sense.
Right.
We're probably going to be with each other for a long period of time.
Like some heathens.
Yeah. Hey, no judgment here. We're just telling stories.
Yeah.
But so within that was, what was the experience like? Because we started this by talking about, the challenges you guys have faced by moving in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what were some of those challenges that you guys faced once you guys actually did move in with each other?
Man, I don't know if we have enough time on this.
The highlights.
Okay.
Highlights.
Let's say the process of finding the right apartment that we want to live in was probably the first challenge. What area, what type of amenities, how much did we want to pay? What were we willing to sacrifice? And at this point, we didn't have any outlook on each other's finances. We didn't know what each one could afford. We didn't even know if I was going to have a job within a short period of time. So
That's real.
It was.
So did your preferences weigh less? Like, bro, you out here talking about you want an island and a garden tub, and you contributing 0 right now.
Right.
Did that weigh less, or how did? No, but that's real, because
that is very real.
Someone could be in that situation and the guy is making a sacrifice.
Right.
His situation may be less stable in the moment, but he still wants a say in what his living situation is going to be.
Right.
What was her, was it like 50-50? Was it like, bruh, wait till you get a job and then we can figure out the next lease? Like, what was it like?
So I think when it comes to, I guess, apartment living, because I looked at it as it's temporary, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it is a lease and a commitment, but overall it's temporary. So when it comes to that, I just personally, I think through what are the most important items that I'm looking for. And I said, these 4 or 5 things are important to me. If we can find a place that has these, I'll give it to you to, lead the process in finding the right place for both of us. So something like, I want it to be closer to downtown within, 15, 20 minute radius, because I was looking for jobs in downtown and I didn't want to drive 45 minutes or drive, from Dallas to Fort Worth, which is in rush hour traffic, could be an hour and a half drive or so. So I had a very short list of things that I was looking for. And one of the important things too was a 2-bedroom apartment, because I was just thinking, okay, we're going through this new challenge. I want my own space. I might need my own space through this
Which
time.
costs more money.
Which costs more money, right?
And it was a time you don't have none.
And at this time, I don't have any. But I guess it was because I think we had.
I can see how the women listen to I don't know if I would have done it. All right, keep going.
Right, like this is my thing. You ain't even coming to the table with no money, but
broke. No,
right.
Go ahead, keep going.
Broke. But yeah. So I think it was a good thing that, but she was understanding, and I'm not asking for a lot.
So it was it was like, because I want people to understand what it looks like too.
Right.
Not like, okay, we struggled, we decided to do this, and they don't get the in between. So was it as simple as you realize, okay, hey, I got to be reasonable here. I'm not contributing at the moment. Mm-hmm. So let me make my preferences reasonable. So you realize that. Was it a function of she's like, okay, I got your list. Now when I go look, and when we're making a decision, I'm factoring that list? Or was there some conflict? She just, was she accepting of it? Just like that?
There was definitely conflict.
Okay, so
there was an
how do you navigate it? Because I don't want people to think, oh, it's Rosie. I told her this is the 4 things that I wanted. She's like, cool, babe, I got it. Add it to my list. No.
It surely was not that easy. So it was more so. I had to present it in a way that it was. I wasn't asking for a lot. I know that
I'm sure in your head you're like, this is real simple.
This is basic, right?
Her head,
she was like, no, this is my city, my town. I know this place. I know exactly where I want to stay. I know exactly what I want. I want hardwood floors, and I want a pool, and from her perspective, it was already in her mind that she knew exactly what she wanted.
Yeah.
And
now we got to add your broke preferences to the conversation.
Right. So it took a little navigating in the conversation. And I think the benefit I had is that because I'd known her for a couple of years, and I led with finding out first what she was wanting. So instead of me jumping out there and immediately saying, hey, this is what I want, so let's work it out, it was, I tried to smooth it over, at least once I was like, yeah, I'm thinking this. What do you think? It's like, well, I want this, and this. I'm looking for this, looking for that. And it helped because I asked the question of what she looked for versus me just trying to jump in and lead. And it allowed us to find this cohesive blend in between what we're looking for in what we wanted to say. And again, it was temporary. It wasn't that important overall in the grand scheme of things if we didn't have a 2-bedroom apartment because she didn't want it, or we couldn't afford it, or we didn't have a washer and dryer in the unit, or it wasn't a complete deal breaker in me moving to Dallas. So I think I actually had to take a sacrifice in some things that I wanted, or the thought process in pushing the things that I wanted, because I also wanted her to be happy. And I could see that she had this vision of what she wanted. She was staying at home with her parents for the past, over 2 years. So I think she was ready.
She knew what she wanted to do.
She knew exactly what she wanted. So it's just a blend between that.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think part of what I wanted to pull out was the notion of the fact that, you know, it's not as easy as saying, hey, let's have a conversation. And, you know, I can hear you speak and say, hey, well, that sounds smart. You just made it about her and then finesse it to get what you want. But like as someone that works in consulting and change management, people ask, how do you make that work? And it's like, how do you find where the interest points of someone when you're navigating conflict or you're trying to change something? It's like, I always tell them, I got to understand what's important to them.
Right.
And once I understand what's important to them, then I can have the conversation in a way that relates to their interest levels. Because if they're interested in X and I'm talking about Y and I haven't connected to how Y can impact X, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And so I think that's what I'm hearing you say that you did. Like
exactly.
You had to make it about resonate for her in a way that you had to speak to it in a way that resonated for her in order to have, you know, an impactful conversation to get what potentially you needed or wanted in that conversation.
And I'd add on to that too. It was acknowledgement of what she wanted in that, to where it was like, okay, I can acknowledge and I see why you might want that and what these items might be important to you. And I can understand that. And then that helped lead into, she could understand that I heard her.
Yeah.
And then it led to her being a bit more open to my suggestions.
I was going to clown you a bit for using the word acknowledge, like, oh, SAT word, acknowledge. But hey,
can you spell it?
It's a new year, 2020. We doing big things.
2020, let's go.
But I say it playfully, but I really think that I don't think anybody has said that word yet on the podcast. And I want to pause for a second because I think in a relationship, and I ain't an expert yet, but in relationship, there's a lot of power in acknowledging.
Right.
X. Acknowledging someone's voice.
Right.
Acknowledging someone's perspective. Acknowledging someone's difference.
Right.
And saying, I see it, I get it, and doing the work to understand it before proceeding. And I think a lot of times we have the tendency to proceed.
Right.
Before acknowledging.
Right.
And so I just want to take a second for people that are listening to that. You said it quickly. Looking back, you probably say it's more of a learning that you received than in the moment. You're like, I know I need to acknowledge it.
Right.
But it's important that whenever we're speaking to someone, especially people that we care about, and we're hitting situations of conflict or disagreement, that acknowledgement is important. A lot of people are beefing now because they just want to be heard, seen, and acknowledged.
Right.
And so to make progress or to move further, faster, we got to acknowledge first. So I just want to stop to just say, hey, I see what you did there.
Right.
And I jotted it down in my Google Notes for next bay.
Right. And it's also important too, because even though you might two be in the same situation, so from a textbook view or a resume, like two people might be in the same situation, but
y'all on the same level in terms of like graduating from the same school, in terms of type of jobs and pay is about to be the same.
Right.
So it's not like roles that are only taking high school degrees or someone's taking a college degree, a graduate degree. You guys are pretty much on par.
Right.
And so it's not that you're taking an L because you're not her match.
Right.
It seems to me that you saw potential and at least had, whether it's through some of the words of your mom or when I had a little bit of foresight to say, hey, I could be losing out a lot if I don't make some of these sacrifices. And I don't think to you at the time, relative to what it might have been for her, it was as big of a sacrifice. It's still a hard decision to make, nonetheless. Right. And so moving forward, so we stopped to talk about how you guys were living together and challenges you guys faced living together. I think we'll get back to it, but I want to make sure for time we keep the story going.
Yep.
And I got a ton of questions. So why did you propose to your wife? Like, what were you looking for? What were you wanting? Like, what made you say, hey, let's take it to the next level?
Right. Thinking through our relationship and in that moment, as I mentioned, looking over and seeing her and it was really in that time where I look at, when I'm 60, 70 years old and gray, who am I going to want to look over sitting next to me on the couch? Is this the type of woman that I want to mother my kids? Is this the type of woman that is going to be there to support me? Is this the type of woman that will be there to pick me up when I stumble and fall? Is this the type of woman that is going to be gracious, considerate, caring? And when I started looking through, not really a checklist, but I mean, everyone has a mental checklist of qualities and things to look for. When I started thinking about that, It was, this is, the designed woman that I'm looking for. And with all of those qualities and questions and concerns and everything, it just dawned on me, kind of, stop being stupid. What are you waiting for? Do it. Like, all these signs have led me to, us meeting, how we met, leading to me moving to Dallas, it working out. And then my mom even made that suggestion, and, and then it working out, and all of these factors that seemed to play. It was like God was saying, hey, slap me around a few times. Okay. Yeah, you might have those challenges, those concerns. Yep. We'll work through those. We'll work through those challenges. But hey, it was kind of that divine intervention that I had to just listen to and say, hey, 60, 70 years from now, this is the type of woman I want to be sitting next to on that couch.
Yeah. So, God slapped you around, you were looking in the future, and, you realize a lot of things are adding up, beyond how you felt, right?
Right.
Beyond that, were you like 100% confident that this, like, she was your person?
No. Now, she might not like my response and how quickly I said it, but in all honesty, no, I did not know.
What percentage? I don't want to get in trouble, right? We're not trying to break people up, but
this is a family show. Was
it? It's not. Okay. Data doesn't say kids are listening. But was it like, hey, I'm above 50%, or hey, it's 95 and I got a few things that I'm working on, or it's like, I feel good about this, but I don't know, and I'm taking a big leap of faith. Like, where were you at? And it doesn't have to be the number, but just kind of mindset. Where were you at when you knew you sat on the couch, like, I could do this forever?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I want to do it forever, but it's like I could do this forever. Right. Like, how sure were you, like, this is my person?
Oh, man, you putting me on the spot here. But I guess
that's
what we came for.
This is what we do.
I say, and I'll give you a number.
Hey, listen, before you do,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm gonna come back saying,
nah, it ain't gonna be no
beefing,
smoke.
so you can use words instead of numbers.
I'd say I was 70 to 80% confident, and I'll explain why. It's kind of two major factors. So one, it was, as I mentioned, it was kind of, is she the right one? Are we gonna vibe together? This relationship working? And God slapped me around a bit on that, which pushed me towards it. But I say a big factor for me is, probably it has a great deal to do with my upbringing. So my parents, my father busted his butt working the graveyard shift, 12-hour shifts, driving an hour to and from work on both ends. So pretty much his days were sometimes 14, 16-hour days. But he did it because to be able to provide for the family. Now, at that time where we moved in together, I didn't have a job. I was blessed to find something relatively quickly. But I wasn't in the right financial situation to say, I am ready to be the leader of this household, to be a husband, to be the man that is to help lead. And I just wasn't there financially. So that gave me a little bit of doubt, is this the right time for me to do this? But again, leading on kind of the first thing, God slapped me around and said, you know what? There's no time like now.
I'm learning that there's never a perfect time. And the follow-up question that I had before you said that was, how much of it was you and feeling like you were prepared to be someone's husband and all the things that came with that. And so it seems like, although a larger factor is this the right person for me, and realization that she is, there's also a substantial part, maybe not the majority, was like, am I ready for that?
Right.
And I think when we think about, am I ready for that? There's what we're saying without saying is that in our minds, there's a certain level of responsibilities, actions, duties, obligations that if we're going to do it and do it right, we need to be ready to do.
Right.
And so what were some of those things that you were like unsure of to a degree, like, am I ready for, as it relates to like being a good husband, to your words, leader of the household, partner for someone that at that moment you might not have felt like you were there yet?
Number one for me was the challenge was financial. I didn't do the best job in college and saving money, and even the year or two that I was working. Oil and gas money was great at that time, and one of our mutual friends, someone we went to college with, can attest to that, because we We went out. We
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Oh, we started on Wednesday. Sometimes Tuesday.
I wasn't in town yet.
$2 tacos.
I didn't come back in town until Thursday.
margaritas. 50-cent wings on Wednesdays.
That was nice. Scott Gardner's.
Yeah, shout out.
Hey,
But it was money just going out the window. I wasn't responsible with it. So when I really thought about that and thought about being responsible in a marriage, I knew I wasn't there. And there was debt there that I felt like I needed to get through. So financial was one. And we being real, I don't think that I was there spiritually. I don't believe I was there because I guess I'll go a little further with spiritually. I didn't have the right zen per se. I was
zen, or you wasn't walking with God the way you need to be walking with God. Like, this ain't you ain't a work.
Come on now.
If your walk wasn't as strong as you felt like it needed to be, let's say that.
Let's go with that.
I don't know. Zen can mean a lot of things to different people.
Let's choose
you
those
talking
words.
about Zen is like are you nice to people? You want to be karma, or your feng shui is okay? Like you talking about the God, or you talking about aura?
You're right. I'll give you that. It was. I didn't feel that I was completely right with my relationship with God.
Okay.
To be that man of the household, to be the support, the strength when as needed, and. Just to name a couple of them, it weighed on me that I just wasn't quite there.
No, I totally agree, and I think one of the things that I like to hash out or bring out in terms of this podcast is the things that we think about that women may not consider, and I think people that really value marriage, value what that means, and have a level of ownership and responsibility to upholding what that means, put a lot of deal of pressure on being prepared and ready. Now, I would also go and say that I think in retrospect, a lot of guys would say some of that stuff doesn't matter because over time you grow out of it or whatnot, or finances, you put more pressure than you need to on certain things. But there's a lot of things that you put on yourself because I need to deliver. This ain't like Biochem 103 where if I don't do well, it's okay. Like you don't want to fail at this.
Right.
And so I think we put a higher degree of pressure on ourselves to be right when, no one's perfect and we don't have to be perfect to take that step. And I think it takes people time to recognize that.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it was also a bit of pressure from her because she was a little bit more established in her career. She was a little bit more kind of ready for that next step. And again, she had been out of 2-3 years. So she kind of more so was in that place where it was, let's do this. I'm ready. We've been toying around with whether this going to work or not, on and off kind of thing. Let's, over all these years, let's go. Let's do this.
So, one of the pieces of feedback that I got from season 1 to season 2 was that people wanted me to talk to guys that have been married for a little bit longer, because I think half of the people, if not more, have been married for like less than a year.
Yeah.
So you got 7 years in the game. Mm-hmm. I'm going on 7 years in the game, so I want to adjust to the feedback that I'm getting. Has marriage been everything it's people have it cracked up to be?
Boy,
I think I knew the answer.
What kind of loaded question is this?
I mean, it's one. It's one that has multiple directions you can go.
Yeah.
And so, tell them about your answer. What has surprised you the most about being married, and now that you have done it for at least 6 years, and what have you learned the most?
Man, I'd say probably the first two things I can think of that kind of stick out is I've learned to be more patient. I'm innately a very patient person when it comes to a lot of things, but I think patience, because with patience comes a better understanding. It provides me more time to really interpret and as going back to that word, acknowledge what she's actually saying, what she's intending to say, and especially sometimes when it gets heated, may not understand, but take the patience to take a step back, give her time, me take some time, and be patient that things ain't going to be resolved immediately. Because I always like to resolve issues immediately. So I guess with that, it was patience. And secondly, a really big one is I wasn't really prepared for the continuous, consistent, constant work. Marriage
is
work. And you hear it all the time. And again, it's only been 6 years, so I can't attest to the amount of work that it takes 10, 15, 20, 30. But in 7 years, in that time, we've endured a lot. We've gone through a lot. And it's I say that with a bit of a caveat because it's not no 20 years. We don't have kids yet. We don't have a mortgage. We haven't gotten to a point where we're bankrupt or we can only afford one car at a moment. So we haven't gone through a lot of challenges that maybe other couples might have. But we have endured enough to where I've really had to work on myself, for myself, and then secondly, work on myself for us. And it's sometimes being the leader, you've got to, as a man of the household, sometimes you've got to go out of the way and do things that you may or may not really understand why. You may or may not really agree with at all times, but sometimes it's something that might make her a little bit understanding, a bit more understanding from your perspective, or it might soften her up a little bit, or something that I constantly work on is trying to compliment her somehow, some way every day. And it might be something slight, maybe joking, but like that little bit, it creates a little bit of positivity and light for her to where, hey, she might have been in a bad mood, might have had a bad day, but maybe that little bit of drop of positivity might turn back towards me. And so if we need to talk about something serious, it might give that little lightness to it. So I probably say those two is patience and that it is a constant. So it's not just work. So work, you go to work every, day and things like that, but constant, consistent, continuous work.
Was that, you're saying that you were surprised by that?
I was very surprised by the amount it is.
And just to I always like to make sure that I'm understanding and hearing people correctly. So, you realize that, it requires more patience and that it's a constant amount of work that it takes to keep it going. And I believe it because I used to tell people relationships are it's like gravity. Mm-hmm. If you don't provide an external force to keep it up, it's going to fall down. Right. Or whatever it is, right? And so I think just like anything else, if there's not a force there to keep it up, it's going to fall down your relationship. If you're not actively, and that's probably better than saying like it's work. If you're not actively and proactively trying to do things or put effort in to keep it at a high, right? Right. It on its own, because we're just people, we're flawed, no one's perfect, it will fall. Right. And so because of that, you've learned that there are things that you can do, whether it's subtle compliments here or there, or joking compliments, whether you have to check yourself to maintain that peace and keep it lifted up. Right. So I'm understanding.
Yeah. And when I say work, I try not to, and I guess it gets construed sometimes when, people have perceptions of when I say work, what it means for a relationship. But I guess it's more so kind of like you said, you've got the challenge of really understanding what needs to be done. What is the long-term investment potential? And so that bit of work, although might be said as work, is not really in that negative tone what most people think of as work.
I feel you. 7 years in the game, I'm gonna give you a 7. We're gonna round up. All right. Are you would you say you're happy in your marriage?
I'd say overall, yes.
Overall, yes.
Have
you always been happy in your marriage?
No.
Oh, okay. No. I didn't know which way this was going to go. I thought I could go yes or no. Right. And so in those moments, is it like I'm pissed today, I'm not happy? Or are these like longer periods of time where like just nothing we're doing is working and I'm just like not happy?
There's been some down periods. Yeah. Really down periods. Really? That got me to a point of considering, and this is probably might upset, might surprise some, but got me to a point where I was strongly considering the D word. Divorce.
I don't know what D word.
The D word.
I know a D word.
Not that D word.
I know a D word. Then divorce.
Divorce. Because
really, so you thought about it?
Yeah, to the point where I actually Googled, my friend Google, to see what it entails to actually go through a divorce. And no, it's not something that I wanted. No, it wasn't what I initially got into I got an out, I got a route out, I can just divorce. But it was some of those lows that really took me to, it was a deep, dark place where I was just like, I just want to get away from all this. And the best option that I thought in those moments was run towards divorce.
Man, I wish we had more time to talk. For those listening, you got to wait till next week. And I'll bring Jomar back and we'll go deeper into his contemplation of getting a divorce. We'll also talk about the need to control things and how that impacts a relationship. We'll spend a bit of time talking about the levels of intimacy and how they really play a critical role in a relationship. And we'll dive a bit deeper in their story of how they moved to another country together where they didn't know anyone and how that impacted and shaped their relationship. For those that have been riding with me, I appreciate you. Like always, make sure you subscribe to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. We're on all platforms. And follow us at Think Love Wife. Be sure to tell a friend. Don't go a day without sharing something or letting a friend know how great this podcast is if you believe it. That's how we continue to grow. And until next week, I hope the conversation keeps going.